this song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! No matter how many times I hear that opening or hear the song Smoke on the Water, it always amazes me how great that snare sounds, especially considering the wackiness with which that album was recorded. But we'll get to all that eventually. For now, we are still on season 3, the self-titled album Deep Purple, also known as Deep Purple 3. In fact, that's the way that it ripped from my CD from the 2000 remaster. It ripped as Deep Purple 3 with no spaces in between to actually denote it's not one word, but it isn't. And today we're talking about the song Why Didn't Rosemary? We've reached side 2 of the proper album. And, this is a song that I have mixed feelings about. It's never been one that was one of my favorites. It is a nice little shuffle. But let's see what the liner notes have to say. It says, why didn't Rosemary? Blackmore, Lord, Evans, Simper, and Pace. Of course, everybody's involved in this one. Vaguely inspired by an Otis band number. Doesn't tell us which one, but vaguely inspired. And again, it's an attempt to widen the scope of a plain 12-bar sequence, referring back to Blind. In fact, the verses are 14 bars long, and the guitar solo verses are 17 bars long. Interesting words from Rod. And I will say interesting words indeed. But who is Otis Spann? That's the big question. Of course, I don't know what song they're referring to because they didn't specifically say. I'm not familiar with his music in the slightest, but I did look him up. And I can tell you that he was born March 21st, 1930, died April 24th, 1970 of cancer. Very young age for cancer. He obviously made his mark in music because in 1972, where they hold the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival, and I grew up fairly close to Ann Arbor, if they're referring to Ann Arbor, Michigan, which it appears they are. They actually named that the Otis Spann Memorial Field. So, obviously he had a pretty huge impact on music. I'm going to have to dig into some of his stuff and see if I can figure out what song. If I can, I doubt I will because it says loosely based anyway. And most likely for, musicians of those times, they really only had a couple of different kinds of songs in their repertoire. So, even if I find one that I think might be similar, it may not be the actual song, but be interesting to hear. There is a video of him on YouTube. I haven't looked at it yet, but actual video of him. So that could be interesting. But yeah, man, that's a pretty young age. I am well past that, I'm sad to say. Sad, I mean, only sad in the way that I'm getting older. But when I look back on life and I think of all the things I've accomplished, whether they've been popular or not, whether they've been successful or not, as Roger Glover once said, the success is in the completion. What happens to it after that is a whole different thing. And I agree with that. I could say, whether this podcast ever reaches an audience that, goes beyond, say, 20 listeners, or whether it goes beyond 20,000 listeners. Either way, the fact that I've done it, and I'll be able to say this at the end of the whole thing, in 15 months or so, 14 months, that I completed what I set out to do. And that is an accomplishment. Every individual episode is an accomplishment. Every album, every song, really there's so many things that I don't really think as a society we give ourselves credit for. But you know what? I'm going to give Rosemary some credit. Should I give her credit for not being on the pill? I kind of feel like Rod really wants her, and maybe I should give him the credit for knowing when to back off. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to get into the song now. Again, not one of my absolute favorite Deep Purple songs. The subject matter is kind of interesting, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll get into it right now. Here is a little bit of Why Didn't Rosemary by Deep Purple. Obviously, this is a shuffle, got a swing feel to it, and that's nice. But that 5 count always throws me off. I always find that a little bit weird. That first section, it feels like it's off time, but it's not. And I always give props to musicians when they can distort the perception of the timing or the click track. If I were to tap my fingers on the click, it's fine. But it feels like it's dragging a little bit, and I think that's pretty cool. Kind of goes along with that swing feel because the swing isn't right on the beat, but it's a cool opening.
There's a black hill we have to climb. Everything I need, but nothing was mine. Satan's world, high black hill. Why didn't Rosemary ever take the pill? Laying there waiting for the kill. Oh, man won't do it, but the devil will.
This is really about as straightforward as the band has been up to this point. There's not, a lot of fills in here and stuff just creating additional points of interest. It's really straightforward. Although I do believe that I'm hearing a second guitar track very much in the background. Can't tell exactly what it's doing, but I'm hearing something that I think is a second guitar track. The mix is really good. The lyrics are coming through really clear. Rod singing great, of course. Everybody's just in good form. And I mean, what's to complain about? We'll find out.
I'm losing time and my mind. Why can't I have what's naturally mine? I got life and the pain that goes with it. If there's something else, where can I get it? Laying there waiting for the kill. Oh, they won't do it, but the devil will.
So Rod Evans, our little horn dog here, is about 22 years old at this point, and I shudder to think about what my hormones were like at 22 or yesterday. But I just feel like he's just like all he really cares about is getting laid in this song, and if I'm understanding the story of it right, that's it. And I don't know, it just feels weird to me. I've never really cared for the lyrics of the song, but I do like the music. I just think it's interesting how straightforward it is and how much they're letting the lyrics drive the song up to this point. I really do like this flourish, though, when the organ comes in and they're doing these stabs. It's really powerful, and it's such a great sound. Everybody, especially the mix. If the mix were off, this would really throw things off balance, but it sounds really good musically. It's a nice solo. It fits the song, but it feels kind of casual. I mean, I don't know what kind of grandiose solo I would be looking for in a song like this. It fits, it's fine, but it all, I don't know, maybe it's the tempo that's just not that exciting to me or something, but it sounds good, but it just, I don't know. I'm not feeling a lot of energy in this song. And coming off of some of the songs like, Chasing Shadows and Blind, and like it feels like there should be more of a push for everything on the album. Kind of like the mentality that they go into Deep Purple and Rock with, where Richie says, if it's not exciting or dramatic, it doesn't belong. I feel like this is just a little too casual for me. So here I feel exactly the opposite. We haven't changed tempos at all, but I feel like the song has picked up. It's more exciting, it's more interesting to listen to. And this really shows obviously opinion is going to be the biggest part of it because other people may feel differently. But I really feel like we're at the same tempo. John Lord solo was okay, it's nice. It's just not really exciting or anything. I don't know what I'm looking for. And then we get to Richie, and I'm like, wow, I feel like the song is faster. It's more interesting. I'm engaged again. And that just goes to, I guess, me being more in tune with his type of performance on this. But it's so weird how, calm and simple John Solo was. And then going into Richie's, they didn't say, you know what, let's match energies. Let's, do something together or dynamic. They just played completely different feelings in the same song. If you want to look deep and philosophical into it, you could go with frustration versus excitement. John Solo is Rod's frustrated. Richie Solo is he's excited. All depends on what you want to see in the song. And again, I swear I hope I one day get the chance to ask Richie about this. But it's just one of those things where it's such an interesting feeling and how different they are between the two solos that are back to back. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? That would be my question. But let's be fair. There is another important difference is that John Solo was very short. Richie's was a very overextended solo for a song like this. I mean, we're only 2 minutes and 44 seconds in, and a good, almost 45 to 50 seconds of that was guitar solo. So you have to consider Richie had a lot more time. And he also had two dynamic breaks in there too, where the music came up and, up and swelled and stopped, and allowed him to do something that was a little more interesting than John got the opportunity. So I want to be fair about that. But just even right off the bat, almost, I was like, okay, as soon as Richie started playing, I'm like, all right, this song's feeling better to me now. So for some reason, it sounds like Richie walked across the room for this solo segment. It was interesting, though. I really liked what he was playing. I felt it was a little angsty. And again, going more along the lines with the lyrics and what the song is about, it felt like that just, I really want this and can't have it kind of feel. Love the playing there. There's some stuff in there that I would hear him do live from time to time in some of his solos. But that was pretty cool. Another main difference between John Solo and Richie's is that there's more buildup in the song. So we're getting, a little bit thicker background music. And especially this last section where John Lord's creeping up in the mix a little bit, just holding that chord. So, I mean, there is a difference in what they're working with, as well as the amount of time, the dynamics available to them in the background. So I don't want to say that John Solo was not as good as Richie's. It was fine. It just didn't strike me for the song as much as what Richie would eventually do. But obviously there were major differences between what they were given to work with.
Here's my views, I always lose. Things I wanna do, yesterday's news. Say life's a ball, I've had it all. All out there without the dance song. Lying there waiting for the kill. Wrong man won't do it, but the devil will.
Now, this is the one verse I can identify with and kind of connect with Rod on, because I think we've all felt at one time or another, at least most people have throughout their lives, that, God, why is everything going everyone else's way and never mine? How come, I can't have the things I want? How come things don't work out for me? I think we've all been there, especially artists. If an artist doesn't feel that way at least 3 or 4 times a day, They're either very egocentric or they've really struck the jackpot because success does not necessarily feel like you've accomplished much. It's a really weird thing with artists. But yeah, I could identify with this verse at least.
Take me as I am, excuse for a man. Whenever I push, someone stops my hand. It's a matter of interest. Tell me if you will. Why didn't Rosemary ever take the bill? Laying there waiting for the kill. Well, man won't do it, but the devil will. Yeah.
Ian Pace is changing things up a little bit in this last verse where he's playing bass, snare, stare instead of, the typical da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. That's kind of nice. I like that there's that again, how little copy and paste this band really is. Even when they're playing, another verse, they find a way to do it differently to make it interesting, to change things up. And I think that's one of the things that at least I gravitate towards with them, and I think probably a lot of other people do, is that it's always interesting, and can't beat that. Okay, it's an interesting ending. Ian Pace is playing very, very reserved for the way he would normally play a song. All the fills are very da, 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 instead of like da, 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 like there's not a lot of dynamics in them. That was drummer speak, by the way. I like what John's playing. That's really cool. Nick Simper's really just keeping that rhythm down. Like what Richie's doing until they start hard panning everything at the very end of the fade out there. I don't know why that was such a popular thing. I don't really know that it was, to be honest. I can't think of, except for maybe a specific part, I can't really think of anybody that was doing that just back and forth hard panning like that. But for whatever reason, they chose to do that. But I'm not a fan of it, but I like what he was playing during that. And of course, Rod's kind of going off. So it's really weird. It felt like the song was, I mean, definitely not meant for the radio with solos that long, and a length of the song being 5 minutes and over 5.5 minutes. Wasn't released as a single, as far as I know. Not even an edited version. I know Tetragrammaton didn't release it anyway. But it's I don't know. It felt like that ending was just so precise and restrained, except for Richie, that maybe it was geared up to be on the radio. And maybe they changed their mind after it. I really don't know. But as a song, I mean, it's okay. It's a nice little shuffle. It's always good to have a shuffle on an album. But I just feel like that first solo section with John Lord really kind of takes me out of the song. And the lyrics, for the first half of it, I should say, the lyrics I really don't think are that great. The second two verses are pretty good. Very, you get a better sense of the fact that it's just more about his frustration with life than just wanting to get laid. And maybe the thing with Rosemary is just what pushed him over the edge. But apart from that, I like the style of the vocals. I like, where he drops down in the verse. And I think it's a decent song. It's just not one of my favorites. And, this band has done 250 plus songs. There's bound to be a handful that I'm just not that big of a fan of. And there are not that many, but there are a couple, and we'll get to all of them, like them or not, because if I'm not doing the show honestly, then what's the point? And that's just how I feel about things. So that is going to do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for all your shares, your likes, your listens, all very much appreciated. I'm about 5 weeks ahead still, I think, in recording. And so I will see comments. Please remember to leave a review or at least a star rating on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, depending on however you access it. I would greatly appreciate that. Please feel free to share any of the social media links. I've got the Smoke on the Podcast Facebook page. You can also find links to everything on my website, scotthaskin.com, under podcasts, because now I've got, this is the third podcast that I've started by myself. And links to all of that stuff are there, and part of some other shows. Like I do the season wrap up for Ultimate Catalog Clash every season. That is so much fun. Love working with those guys. I'm a guest on the Deep Purple podcast now and then, and some other shows. All of my appearances are on the website as well. The different shows I've been invited to be a part of or interviewed on. And then, of course, there's the Wednesday show, the Haskin Cast podcast, where I do everything from, album reviews to shows to movie here and there to interviews to all kinds of stuff. I've interviewed some really fascinating people. And, who knows where things are as of right now, because like 5 weeks in the future as you're listening to this. So anyway, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode of Smoke on the Podcast. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for listening.